October 10, 1947, of the Dakar-Niger railroad workers, which was immortalized by the late comrade Ousmane Sembène in his well-known book, Got Bits of Wood. The initiative came from medical doctors, pharmacists, engineers, technicians, and railway workers, typographers, teachers, and students. According to the great study conducted by a friend, Amadi Alidien, the title of which is The Great Struggles of the Black African Students in France, from Bandung to Independence, published in Harmattan, Paris, 2009, I quote, "Most of the signatories mainly work in Thiès. There were 10 out of 23 pharmacists, dental surgeons, teachers, students, engineers, DN, Dakar, Niger Railroad, specialized workers. The signatories stood for the future and were from various segments of African society that will bring development for their countries to come and whose liberation from colonial yoke and oppression was more than just a topical issue as it had come to maturity. They did not lack clairvoyance by inscribing their actions with the aim of creating the conditions for the emergence of African unity before the proclamation and the founding of the Organization of African Unity in 1963, with sections in Sudan, Mauritania, Côte d'Ivoire, Upper Volta, Niger, Guinea-Conakry, the Organization of African Students within the African Party for Independent Students movement, and other youth organizations, women and workers. The signatories of the manifesto have, on the other hand, rightly, after an in-depth analysis of the context of the time and the prospect it bore, to launch the slogan of national independence. Deal with our team in making the link between the how and the why, therefore amounts from the point of view of the method which we have chosen to making the story of the birth, the struggles, the evolution, the safeguarding of our collective revolutionary memory, to indicate that the composition of the African Independence Party could not but lead to an analysis of all those elements that have an impact on the struggle of Senegalese communists, past and present. This party was for the time the necessary instrument for the advent of fairer society free from colonial tyranny, a new type of party inspired by Marx, Engels, and Lenin in particular, a scientific party capable of intervening from its inception to the present Independence and Labour Party in all areas of political analysis of economic, social, and cultural situations using scientific methods and analysis of art and its functions, literature, cinema, contemporary African art that affects our social being. These men and women were not ordinary in the sense of common in that, having chosen their way, that of social transformation, they gave themselves body and soul to their destiny, which is to free men from all the hurdles standing in the way of their blooming. They gave us life lessons in the conscious political commitment, putting the leaders of our country before their social, economic, and cultural responsibilities from the moment they reached the highest decision-making bodies that weighed on citizens' life. We realize the fruitfulness of this thought that resolutely is aimed at defending and exemplifying Karl Marx today in globalization and the contemporary debate on liberalism and neoliberalism in the light of the consequences of the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the socialist world, and the triumph of the excessive financialization of the world economy. I come back to the emblematic figure of Seydou Cissokho, who knew how to read Marx to understand the dynamics that cross our societies. Indeed, these teachers by training theorized what I call in the paper issued in the proceedings of the Conference on Africa at the Heart of Globalization, a tribute to the late Professor Semu Patigay, who deal a lot with Popper, Habermas, and Adorno, published in January 2016 at the University Collection Pan-African Press of Montreal. Marx lessons, I quote, "Not accepting class exploitation doesn't mean indulging in speculative thinking about the necessity of transforming our world. Those foundations are based on a class exploitation that the dominant ideology tries to hide. Considering the political, economic, and social structure of our country, African Party for Independence comrades and the heirs of this first vanguard party, as Lenin defined it, never ceases to think concretely of the reality to introduce revolutionary changes, multifaceted nature of the situation created by imperialism and the dialectical process that crosses them in order to resolve the contradictions which are out there and which bring about qualitative change. It is this necessity of transforming social and economic relations in and between societies which has been explained using a conception of history of which Marx and Engels had theoretically and scientifically prepared as an objective necessity. The relationships that people maintain between them are marked first and foremost by the place they occupy in the exchanges they maintain among themselves, beyond the specificities stemming from different cultures and the situation of constitution of different societies. In the final analysis, it is all about man as Marx defines it in an impressive, not idealized thought operativity, but made concrete since Feuerbach's famous 11 Theses. These theses had been preceded in the critique of the philosophy of right by Hegel by a rigorous analysis of the positions born out of the actions of the organized proletariat, which gave off a fundamental principle of revolutionary transformations. I quote, "The theory also becomes a material force from that it seizes the masses," the end of the quotation. In the German ideology, where Marx and Engels formulated for the first time in an elaborated way the theory of the historical materialism, one finds striking formulas, as one of the most eminent translators of Marx in France reported, the late Professor Gilbert Badia, to whom we pay tribute for having coached us in preparing for our academic career. He reports some of these formulas of Marx and Engels, which will constitute the foundation of the universal Marxist doctrine. They is the entry point to explain, among other things, the need to create a revolutionary party like African Party for Independence. I quote, "Conscience doesn't determine life, it's rather the contrary. Circumstances make men as much as men created circumstances. The thought of the ruling class are also the dominant thoughts in every era. In the revolutionary activity, man changes himself by changing circumstances. Consciousness is the conscious person. The last formula, the famous 11 Theses, is all loaded with meaning. I quote, "Philosophers have only interpreted the word in different ways, but what matters is transforming it." End of quotation. This thesis has lost not of its relevance despite the misinterpretations and false sense of its critics, who have tried ultimately to create the illusion of an African pseudo-socialism that denies the realities of class struggle in tropical south and neocolonialist as a vindication of Marx in his struggle against philosophy. This statement is based on Leopold Sédar Senghor's understanding of Marx in his book Liberty 2, Nation and African Way of Socialism, when he translates the famous thesis shorthand, I quote, "Philosophers have simply interpreted the word differently, but it is about modifying it." So we can see it already here, both nationally and theoretically, in one of our fiercest political and ideological opponents who are trying to recover such a deep-rooted thought of transforming men's living conditions, be they African, in a tribute of vice to virtue. In this way, they demonstrated, despite everything, the vitality, the attraction, and the success of a thought that doesn't obey any diachronic or synchronic contingency. Those among our antagonists who were thinking and willing to establish in theory and practice, in the fierce repression of the African Independence Party, the non-inadequacy between the ideas of Marx, Engels, and later Lenin for ways of revolutionary, non-capitalist, and even anti-capitalist in economically backward societies deliberately ignored the power of Ethiopia. If we are to deal with the theme of how to know why, as part of adhering to the ideals of the African Independence Party, with expressive signified in its passage to the Independence and Labour Party in wider, more universal connotation of this signified, we cannot pass over the social nature of their respective components. Among these, there are revolutionary intellectuals, to name only this social group in continual change, capable of bringing from its experience and knowledge of the source of theoretical knowledge based on the experience of social realities, an indispensable contribution to the revolutionary struggle. Their familiarity with the sources of Ethiopia, as taught by the forerunner of this vision of transformation, Thomas More, in his famous book, Ethiopia, can attest to this fact, despite any idea of equivalence with an impossibility of realization. We like to quote the preface of Claude Mazurik, who presents this doctrine, I quote, confronted with the responsibility of power, More discovered both the power of the instruments, the spells and villainous of this exercise. Where are equity and justice when the evolution in the English countryside of the East leads to enclose the land and throw the perpetual tenants out of their home by turning somehow the sheep into a devourer of men? What legitimacy will cover the punishment inflicted on the chief when it is social misery, which at the same time provokes theft and imposes the gallows? What can be the authority of the law and the virtue of the prince when he is freed from common law and even violates the sacred precept of the religion of all to submit only to his passion or interest as a monarch? With the recent commercial and manufacturing momentum of the new century, further reinforced by the geographical enlargement of the world as evidenced by the story of Amerigo Vespucci, More's exploration of America, mentioned it in the Ethiopia, money, which is seen as a universal equivalent of all human practices based on exchange and possession, was destined to become the new Moloch of the times to come, how to succeed. The idea and the humanist ideal of this English philosopher who lived in the 15th century can become concrete if one refers to three aspects contained in this project. First, the response of Marx and Engels in the Manifesto of the Communist Party, which illuminates the history of the relation of exploitation of the bourgeoisie in its own geographical field. I refer to the wonderful film by Raoul Peck, The Young Marx, presented successfully because of its topicality last year at the 67th edition of the International Film Festival in Berlin, the Berlinale. What does Marx tell us in this iconic text? I quote it, by exploiting the world market, the bourgeoisie gives a cosmopolitan nature to production and consumption in all countries. Much to the regret of the reactionaries, it stripped the industry of its national base. All national industries have been destroyed and are still being destroyed every day. They are crowded out by new industries whose establishment becomes a question of life and death for all civilized nations, industries which are no longer transforming domestic raw materials, but raw materials from the most distant part of the globe, and whose products are consumed not only in the country itself, but in all parts of the world at the same time. Instead, of the old needs which are met by national production, new needs arise, claiming for their satisfaction products from the most remote countries and climates. Instead of the past isolation of region and self-sufficient nations, universal relations and universal interdependence between nations are developing. And so is the production of the mind, such as material production. The intellectual achievement of a nation becomes a common property of all. National narrowness and exclusivism are becoming more and more impossible every day, and the multiplicity of national and local literatures are creating universal literature. End of quotation. Marx's text on colonialism, particularly in 1853 on India and British colonialism, or in Algeria, shed light on the profound upheavals in the colonies. They illustrated the consequences of these analyses, whose scope is measured by the system of domination of Western powers over the world, especially over Africa, since the 1884 Berlin Conference. We will usefully refer to the letters of Algiers and the Côte d'Azur of Marx, who stayed for health reasons in this country in 1882 to relate the abuse of settlers, racism, and the way they treat native people. The need for social transformation feeds on colonized people and progressive intellectuals all over the world because of the theoretical and practical feeling of the capitalist mode of domination in its phase of expansion. This one leads already to the time to speak of globalization by the knowledge and the irrepressible desire to understand the mechanism by which the domination is exerted on them. The repercussion of the Great Revolution of October 1917, thinkers under the leadership of the Bolsheviks and Lenin, those of the great thinkers of scientific socialism lead in many parts of the world to thinking about in deep social transformation. We are not going to dwell on the different controversies arising out of the different paths towards socialism, still less on the still programmed but unsuccessful death of Marxism. Are we happy quoting a specialist and companion of a moment in Marxian theory and its influence on the contemporary world at the occasion of a very revealing meeting on Marx or not? Reflection on a centenary. The philosopher Henri Lefebvre once said, I quote, Marxism, we must express the greatest reservation about this term. I wonder whether he has ever designated or connected a definable conception. There have been many Marxism for a long time, as there were many tendencies engendered by Christianity, by the work of Plato or Aristotle, or by that of Descartes. There are trends, schools of thinking, more or less original, and more different. Can you talk about Adorno as Gramsci, Lukács as Benjamin, and talk about Adam Schaff as Althusser or Poulantzas, to name a few? The controversy that accompanied the definition or the applicability of Marxism in particular historical condition did not spare the Senegalese communist movement from the birth of the African Independence Party, which led to the bursting of an important part of what is commonly known as the Senegalese left. How? Yeah. No. Okay. I can go. Most of us have had their share of the birth of this party in the 70s. The history of the march of socialism in the former Eastern European countries is revealing, moreover, of these factors that Alain Badiou calls the ebb tide on the red decade at the beginning of this book, The Communist Hypothesis. I quote in, from the mid-70s of the last century, the ebb tide of the red decade initiated by the quadruple occurrence of national liberation, Vietnam and Palestine, singularly, and the worldwide movement of student youth, Germany, Japan, USA, Mexico, factory revolts in France and Italy, and the Cultural Revolution in China. This outgoing tide finds its subjective form in designated renegade, the return to customs, including electoral ones, difference to the capitalist parliamentary or Western order, the conviction that looking for better is looking for worse. End of quotation. The objective causes that led to the birth of the party in Senegal were sufficiently analyzed in the central documents as well as those that accompany the various rifts and crises that this party experiences until the birth of the Independence and Labour Party, Senegal, now. See the rectifying conference of 1967. The departure of comrades from other political horizons, the abandon of the reference to Marxism, etc. In any case, those who have remained faithful to the ideals of this party and continue to campaign in the structure they have set themselves to foil all the maneuvers of the class enemy still use the analysis tool produced by Marx and Engels to understand the world as it works today. They have their top items of Marx's lesson contained in the letter to Anton Annenkov, a Russian liberal journalist dated December 1846. Social history is never but the story of their individual's development, whether they are aware of it or not. These material reports constitute the source of all their reports. These material relations are only the necessary form in which their material and individual activity is realized. I would like to finish by going back to the theme that has been proposed to me by taking up ideas that I have expressed during the tribute to the philosophers that had delivered to Semu Pategei and whose contribution have been published in the book Africa at the Heart of Globalization. Speaking of the necessity of having the conceptual apparatus that allowed us to understand the world for its transformation, I said, I quote, "The concrete and moving framework of human life which mankind shapes humanity. To schematize, we say that it is one of Marx's merits to have analyzed ideas, general conception, Weltanschauungen, and behaviors by bringing them back to the structure of life that witnesses their birth, and by studying man's history in its reality, in that of the links they preserve between them. While people were aware of these relationships, they lacked a scientific way to analyze their essence in order to discover the truth that is present and which call for the transformation of these relationships for the full development of all. This is why Marx formulated both theoretically and concretely the new conceptual shame that was missing and shaped the methodological tools that make it possible to apprehend these phenomena. He highlighted the interrelations that underlie their dynamics and the prospect for progress that underlie them. In doing so, Marx broke with the speculative conception of philosophy. In one of his texts on philosophy and methodology on colonialism, written at the end of 1843, early 1844, Marx, speaking of the reality of the situation in Germany, nevertheless drew conclusions of universal significance. Criticism of society in politics leads to the revolutionary struggle for men's total emancipation. Marx once said, "For the revolution of a people and the emancipation of a particular class of civil society to coincide, for one of the social groups to represent the whole society, it is necessary, conversely, that all the faults of society are concentrated in another place. It is necessary that a certain group be a subject of universal scandal. The incarnation of the universal barrier, a particular social sphere, must embody the notorious crime of the whole society, so that freeing oneself from this sphere appears as to freeing oneself from all change." No? 5 minutes, okay. I'm okay. At the end. Asking the question why and how, or the opposite, is not only the subjective and objective effects that underlie a membership of a communist party like African Independence Party, but also and consequently rereading Marx. It is about putting it at the heart of the class struggle in its approach to the relations that the identified social classes maintain between themselves through the ideological set-up superstructure, and which acts without the thinking and acting subjects knowing it. This is shown in the magnificent book of by Domenico Losurdo, Against the History of Liberalism, published in the 2007 translation of the edition La Découverte Paris. The object of which is to draw attention not to the history of liberal thought in its abstract purity, but liberalism as a movement. It is a question of understanding the conceptual elaborations of liberalism, but also and above them, the political and social relation through which it is expressed, as well as a more or less contradictory link that is established between those two dimensions of social reality. This means putting again the historical responsibility of our party in Senegal in the contradiction of our world today, which it needs to enlighten, explain, and set new targets to tackle them. Thank you very much for your attention, and I apologize for my English.
Bueno, muchas gracias por esta intervención y vamos a pasar dando paso precisamente para hablar de qué es el socialismo con características chinas. Para ello nos acompaña la profesora Maguèye, profesora de Educación de la Universidad de Wuhan, en China, y también de la Escuela de Marxismo. Ella nos va a dar su visión y después, posteriormente, ya dejaremos tiempo para un turno de reflexiones. Profesora, muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you. So, everyone can hear? So, okay, thank you. So, yeah. Thank you for coming. So this is my great honor to give this talk to the conference as a Chinese scholar. Today, I will talk about President Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. So today, I will talk about, my talk will try to answer two questions. The first one, what is a new era? The second, how to understand the new era and how is this new era different from before. So the party's 19th Congress of Chinese Communist Party has aroused the attention of the world, and also set off the climax of Chinese academic research on the thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. So we can say this graph. So this is the platform of China's largest data database. We usually call it China Knowledge Network. So there is a new era at a keywords search. We found there are, 2010, we just found 74 articles. But in 2018, it's predicted to increase more than 5,000 articles. So this is the thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era for the article names search. There are 1,500 articles in 2017, but however, it's predicted to increase more than 2,500 articles in 2018. So we think this is a hot, topic in the China. So today I will talk what is a new era. So I try to explain these questions. So this I caught with decades of hard work, socialism with Chinese characteristics has crossed the threshold into a new era. This is a new historic junctures in China's development. So this is come from the party's 19th Congress major reports. So this is President Xi Jinping, talk this. So this comes from, so the main report. So I quote, the Chinese nation, with since modern times began had endured so much for so long, has achieved, maybe I changed that. So this is, sorry. So has achieved a tremendous transformation. It has stood up, grew rich, and is becoming stronger. It has come to embrace the brilliant prospect of rejuvenation. So I think this is from the perspective of 170 years of Chinese model history. So I quote, it means that scientific socialism is full of vitality in the 21st century China, as that the banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics is now, is flying high and proud for all to see. So I think this is a perspective from the development of world socialism. I quote, it means that the path, the theory, and the system and the culture of socialism with Chinese characteristics have kept developing, breathing a new trail for other developing countries to achieve modernization. It's offered to a new option for other countries and nations who want to speed up their development while preserving their independence. And it offers Chinese wisdom and a Chinese approach to solve the problem facing mankind. So I think it's from the point of view of the world. So I want to talk about the second question. So how do we understand a new era, and how is this new era different from the before? So the first, I think socialism with Chinese characteristics has crossed the threshold into a new era. This is a new era, historical juncture in China development. What is the historical juncture? It's where we come from, where we are now, and where we will go in the future. For example, whether reading or bicycling or driving, once use GPS position, it's easy to know where we go, where the destination, how to go. If we encounter a traffic jam, I know the GPS tell us very clearly. So the whole juncture is clearly your entire, itemisms is also clear for country, for society. The historic juncture is actually use GPS to use their own position. So the second, the new era refers to the major political judgment about the development of China and the Communist Party of China, which is not the concept of historical age division in the general sense. Generally speaking, the new era refers to economic, political, culture, and other conditions as the basis of historical period divide. For example, with science and technology and productivities as the standard division of historical periods, usually we can say that this era can the natural economy era, agricultural economy era, industrialization era, post-industrial era. So in China, the new era is a specific term which refers to the great political judgment of development of China and the Chinese Communist Party, not the concept of the historic age division in the general sense. So eras are not states, but a complex dynamic process from the quantitative change to quantitative transformation. So the new era means that the course of socialism with Chinese characteristics have achieved a fresh leap on the basis of quantitative development since 1978. The socialism with Chinese characteristics enter a new era through long-term effort. New era is the background of President Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics, which indicates the way forward for insisting on and developing socialism with Chinese character under the historic conditions. So, the concept of Marxism, historic materialism, about the era, the determination of historic times from the perspective of productive relation determined by the productivity and social economy forms as standard. The era are changed, the society is developing, and the scientific judgment of Marxist historical materialism about the great historical era is still scientific truth. Although we are in an era of great and profound changes compared with the era of Marx, from the perspective of the development of human history, today is still in the historic era of Marxism. That is, Marx and Engels in the Communist Manifesto called over time the bourgeois era. That is what Lenin called the big historic era. That is a capitalist made of production in the world dominated. Capitalist society from in the world as the dominant social formation of the historic era. From the 1640 English bourgeois revolution to the present, the capitalist age has nearly 400 years in history. Capitalism has gone through a flourishing stage and has entered the decline stage. Despite the fact that the new social forms of socialism has become a reality from the 1917 to today, the socialism with Chinese characteristics has been successfully developed, but the socialist society is still not dominant in the world. So from the establishment of capitalist social form, it's full of a struggle between socialism and socialist and capitalist social system, two development paths. And the more the history move forward, and the more intensified the struggle. The basic contradiction of capitalism has now changed. The historical trait of human social evolution has not changed. So at the historical inevitability that socialism, this new social forms must replace capitalism has never changed. So according to Marxist historic materialism, according to the evolution of social formation theory and the revelation of the evolution of history, the big historic era of the historic judgment, that is human from the primitive society era to the slave age to the feudal era to the capitalist era, and then through the long process of socialism in the era of communist society. This is an irreversible historical trend. This is a judgment of Marxism on the great historic time. So the concept of time used in the era of socialism with Chinese characteristics is not the concept of great historic times in the view of history, and it's brought forward from the perspective of the course of development of China has CPC. The concept of these two eras are different on the basis of historic materialism, and they are the terms determines from the party and the national cause as subordinate to the generalized great historical times. So the great historic times are made up of the specific times in the narrow sense. So the new era, which refers to socialism, Chinese characteristics, has already stood as a new historical start point, entered a new historical stage, and it's a new historical position, and this important political judgment is also correct. So therefore, President Xi Jinping pointed out, I quote, the Chinese characteristics of socialism into a new era. In the history of People's Republic of China, the history of Chinese nation has great significance in the history of world socialism, and the history of human society also has great significance. So the third, the new change of principle conditions in the primary stage determines the socialism with Chinese characteristics has entered a new era. So it's a political conclusion that President Xi Jinping objective analysis is a change of China's principal contradiction. In the 1956, the Communist Party of China made a correct judgment on the principal contradiction of country in the 18th Congress, and put forward the contradiction between the growing material and cultural need and the backward social production, which is the principal contradiction in the primary stage of socialism. After 14 years reform and opening up, so the connotation of principal contradiction too has undergone profound changes. On the one hand, China has said the basic need of cover 1 billion people might has basically made it possible for people to live decent lives, and will soon bring the building of moderatively prosperous society to a successful completion. The need to be met for the people to live better life are increasing broad. Not only have their material and cultural needs grow, so their demands of democracy, rule of law, fairness and justice, security, and a better environment and are increasing. On the other hand, China's overproductive force has significantly improved, and in many areas, overproduction capacity leads the world. So more imminent problem is that our development unbalanced and inadequate. This is became the main constraining factor in meeting the people's increased need for a better life. So, on this basis, Xi Jinping has made a major new judgment in the Party 19th March report. He thinks the principal contradiction faced the Chinese society has involved. What we know face is a contradiction between unbalanced and inadequate development and people's ever-growing need for a better life. So the change of social principle contradiction is a historical change of real relationship, which put forward many new demands on the party and the national work. The historical transformation of social principle contradiction is objective basis of judge the development of new historical position in China, which decides the socialism with Chinese characteristics has entered a new era. So the last I talk simple. So the new futures of China's social development change show that socialism with Chinese characteristics is entering a new era. After 40 years reform and opening up, especially since the 18th Congress of the party, the economic and social development of our country present a series of new futures. The first, the way of administration and the basic strategy have a great innovation. The Chinese Communist Party leads the people to carry out the basic strategy of administering the country according to law, unswervingly follow the path of socialism, rule of law with Chinese characteristics, continuously improve the socialist legal system with Chinese characteristics, build a socialist country ruled by law. The second, the development concept, the way of development has undergone significant changes. The party leads the people to scientifically grasp the socialist essential requirements and development direction to resolve the development problem, to develop advantage of development. So, and to put forward the new development concept of innovation, coordination, green, openness, and share with the people as the center. So to form a new development mode under the guidance of the new development ideas. The third, the development environment and development condition has undergone profound changes. So China's economy development has shifted from the high-speed growth stage to high-quality development stage. It's in the transformation of development mode, optimization of economic structure, the transformation of growth momentum of research period, and the construction for model economic system is an urgent requirement to cross the threshold and the development of a strategic objective. So therefore, it's the development level and the development request to appear the higher expectation. The new development stage put forward higher demand and expectation for the party ruling style and ruling level, which require party members, especially the leader cadres. So the new stage and the new characteristics of social development show that the socialism with Chinese characteristics enter a new era. So this is my presentation. So thank you for patience. So your question and comment are warm welcome. So thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Bien, bueno, les agradezco mucho el tiempo que han utilizado y que nos dejen así margen para reflexiones que se puedan tener ahora o alguna pregunta que se quiera realizar. Es su turno. Si quieren alguna cuestión, reflexión, alguna pregunta, alguna aclaración. Venga, pues ánimo. Sí, adelante, comienza, sí. ¿Por qué? No me he enterado. Ah, necesitamos el micrófono. No, ahora. Sí.
Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Se oye o...?
Perfecto. Perfecto, sí, sí.
Bueno, la pregunta iba dirigida para Maguèye y hacía referencia a cuál es la actitud de su organización y de las organizaciones de izquierda de Senegal ante el hecho religioso en su país.
J'ai quelqu'un qui va traduire en espagnol.
La question...
J'ai compris.
Ah, ok.
J'ai compris. Je veux répondre en français, tu vas traduire.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's necessary in English for
Okay.
the translation.
Wait. We never have any kind of problem with religion. Also, religion is a very, very, very important matter, especially in Senegal. We have, in our history of struggle, many supports from leaders of Islam because of the understanding of what Senghor was doing with friends and the exploitation of the land workers and les paysans. You know, and because of the culture of, comment on dit, les arachides. Non, la culture de l'arachide. Cacahuète. Because of the very dominant position of France, exploiting those people from the land, very early in the 60s, our party was very, very, very supported by some religious sectors in Senegal. We never had any kind of critical attitude against religion, because we know that it is a very sensible question, you know. And the problem was not between, like Louis Aragon said, those who believe in God and those who doesn't believe in God. The problem was which position has anybody in the society. We understood it very, very, very early. So that we have in our party imams, I don't know how it is correct in English, imam, who is part of our party, you know. We never had any kind of problem of, also Senghor tried to deny the fact that you can be a communist and believing in God or not believing in God. This problem we never had. Exactly is a position of today between radical Islamism and others. You know, because of the typical situation in Senegal, Islamic radicalism will never grow because of the interconnection between those who are fighting for a better situation, including a critic to the system, and those who doesn't believe. It was never has been a problem in Senegal. We never have a religious problem between communists and non-communists. Evidently, some forces try to separate our struggle from the struggle of the whole society in like saying those people do not believe in God. But they never have success in this direction. That's why, although our party was forbidden from 1960 to 1980, 20 years illegal work, we always have protection and support from those, especially from those biggest part of Islamic world in Senegal, the Tijans on one hand and the Murid on the other hand. We have in both very good relation in every event organized by one of those parts of Islamic world in Senegal. We are invited, we received, and people say that we are real patriots in this sense. Not thinking about socialism or communism, but thinking about fighting against the common enemy. It is a French exploitation, it is the Western countries' exploitation of our country. I don't know if I have this answer to your question.
Bien, Pablo, creo que sí, quería hacernos una cuestión, sí. Le agradecemos. Sí, no, Pablo. Sí, no, a él. No, perdona, a Pablo, sí, a él, primero.
Sí, mi pregunta es a la profesora. Si es una nueva era, ¿cuáles son las semejanzas con la era anterior y cuáles son las diferencias? ¿Y por qué se emplea la palabra era cuando no sabemos si el mundo va a subsistir arriba de unos cuantos años?
Yeah, thank you for good question. Yeah, you know, China is usually we say the primary stage of socialism, Chinese socialism. So why? So we use euro. So we think, for example, we can use a stage, right? A stage, right? Maybe use stage or maybe use time and maybe another word. But I think the China government, you know, why so China Communist Party, so why use new eras? So I think he want to, they want to tell the people and tell the world. So this new, I think maybe new times it's different from another, different before. So, you know, I thought of 4 points. So I try to explain, you know, many Chinese scholars focus on thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics. For example, what context significant, but not too many scholars pay more attention to new era. So I try to answer these questions. So So I think so I don't know. So this, you know, my topic can speak clearly. So, you know, this Chinese Communist Party use New Year. So I just try to, you know, I want to do some research about this New Year. So maybe I think I do more research. Yeah. So why use New Year? Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your very interesting and important interventions. Is it, am I heard? Is this clear? Okay.
Nothing.
Thank you very much for your important interventions.
You and you. English.
I think.
Oh, sorry. So I cannot. Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. I think Spanish. So
there's something wrong, but now it's okay. Okay. I tend to think that in the 1970s, all over Europe, and also in Latin America and in Africa, we had debates on the crisis of Marxism. And since then, the Soviet type of Marxism has almost broken down and, if not vanished, has become marginalized. And I am struck, I must say, that this historical event has no place in your discussions of Marxism in Africa or Marxism in China. And I think this is really surprising. And I tend to think that this is a major weakness of your presentation.
I wanna try an answer to your question. We had in the 60s and in the 70s and almost in the 80s, many problems with our brothers in socialism. We were part of the how you call it, the Zeitschrift in Prague, problem of socialism. We have written down our critics in the way our comrades in the eastern part of Europe are making socialism. We had a very, very long time, very hard discussions with our comrades from this era, especially in the Soviet Union, and especially also in Prague, because of the way African countries has to go to socialism. We have always discussed about the mode of production. I tell Nancy yesterday or for 2 days about this mode of production. Do we have to follow the so-called Asian mode of production or Indian mode of production? Do we have to follow a way taking care of the cultural and historical situations in Africa? We can't say about Africa as a whole. We have North Africa, we have Sub-Saharan Africa, we have South Africa. And we had at that time the struggle of the liberation movement in Guinea-Bissau, in Mozambique, in Angola. The problem was at that time a midway between going to socialism, in which form the workers' classes were not so grown in this country. Besides maybe Senegal, I talk about this strike of the Dakar, Niger workers, 1947. I could speak about the UCAD, the General Union of Workers in Africa, I mean in Sub-Saharan Africa. And most of them had to support repression from the government, unless maybe short before the independence of those countries. And after the independence, Senghor tried to canalize the worker in their tradition. And therefore, our thought were how to deal with historical, cultural situation in any kind of form. We can find it elsewhere. I mean, people from Russian or the revolution in Germany in 1918 or the Vietnam Revolution, we have a very, 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 very special case of going from one situation in which we have people who cannot read or understand, and people who are not very, very strong in trade union, in which the religious factor has a very deep influence through the masses. The mot d'ordre, I don't know how to call it in English, was national liberation. Until now, we are part of the government right now, not because of our satisfaction in liberalism, because Macky Sall, who is the president of Senegal right now, is a liberal, and we are communist. But we thought that in a very, very not easy to define period, we have to deal with some very, very, very special situations compared to other situations. For example, look at Burkina Faso with Sankara. What he tried was a socialism in Burkina Faso. But socialism could not grow because of the French people and the French domination, like in Côte d'Ivoire with Laurent Gbagbo, or because of the internal structure of Burkina Faso. The mot d'ordre of that time was all for the people. But what kind of people? I mean, it is very complicated. And that's why 1989, we were not very surprised of the collapse of many parties in Eastern Europe, because we have acted warning signals to say, fellow, what you are doing is not socialism. But we are not very, very good hurt. And one of our leaders were forced to leave Prague, 1968, because of our opinion against the way the situation were at that time. You know, it is not very, very, very easy to define is it easy to go from a situation to another situation in which we are not sure that people understand what we want to do? In a situation in which friends, even if we were leading the government of Senegal today with Marxism or socialism, I can tell you, in the next day, French troops and NATO troops will come and follow it because of challenging people who doesn't understand what is really going on. You know, it is not easy. The situation is theoretically not easy, but we try every day to understand the dynamics, the real dynamic in which our societies are in conflicts.
No, I think.
Bueno, sí, perdona.
Just what? So can you pardon the question?
Yes, I have the question.
Yes, the question. No, yes.
I have a question for
sí.
Maguèye. She said that the end of socialism on the basis of quantitative basis, you say. And I'm a little bit confused after listening to my colleague and friend Richard about ecological crisis in China. the gap between quantitative and qualitative. I don't know if in China you are always talking about socialism in the form of giving people what they need, but not having all the time the situation in which they can say, okay, we are now living in a way conform with, for example, the environment, you know, the ecological problems like pollution, like Richard say for yesterday, Richard? Ho-ho.
So, yeah, right. So this is the problem. So, you know, China have, in the past, I think maybe 10 years, for 10 years, we pursue high-speed, you know, high-speed development, especially some local government official, you know, they want to pursue GDP, you know, GDP. Domestic gross, GDP. So they want to do, they want to maybe say, oh, I'm very good. So sometimes they don't care, you know, the environment. So the China have a serious pollution. Yeah, I think this is right problem, but now I think the government change. For example, usually we say, oh, GDP must get to 10%, every year 10%. But now we change, we think, oh, maybe 6%, maybe lower 6, maybe 7%, that's okay. So now the local government official maybe pay more attention to how to deal with pollution and how to improvement the low-income people, you know, low-income people, housing and medicine. So I think President Xi Jinping, you know, now pay more attention to many social problems. So really. So, you know, yesterday I gave another presentation. So in maybe 2013, maybe, you know, people index of people satisfactory, you know, to Chinese Communist Party, you know, maybe just more than 16 or 17%. But now, you know, the China government do a lot of work in dealing with pollution, anti-corruption, and, you know, improve people's well-being. So now the index of people's satisfactory is go up. Mm-hmm. So now we are more than 90% people, Chinese people think it's very good. But, you know, I'm visiting professor in King's College in London. So I'm not come from China, I'm from UK. So I come here, really, I heard many Western people, Western scholars, including Western Marxist and socialist. They say, oh, China is not socialism country. China is capitalist country. So we think, for example, you know, every person we, you know, put on your shoes. Mm. Yeah, so how size you put on, so you just yourself know how size, how size, right? To China, you know, Chinese people think, oh, now we are think good. But some capitalist medias, and for example, BBC and another, some internet, so say, oh, you are not good. So many Western people have never been to China. He just say China, you know, from the internet for BBC and the media, you know, some capitalist media. I give one example. 2011, yeah, in my city, I'm from Wuhan University. It's very famous university in China. So my city is located in the center of China. I remember 2011. Usually I have serious air pollution. I think I cannot say blue sky. But now I think, yeah, mostly I can say, yeah, blue sky. I think I feel better. Yeah, really I feel better. So I believed, you know, in the, with the Chinese Communist Party, you know, leader and guide, I believe the China, you know, development more and more good. Yeah, really, I believe, because, you know, 11 years ago, I'm visiting scholar in UC Berkeley, you know, in American. And last year, I'm visiting scholar in Oxford University. And last September, I returned to China. And this July, I come back. I choose the UK, still choose the UK. So I compare the US, UK, and China. So I think China, why so, you know, I think, you know, China, Xi Jinping is good, so I compare, you know, I watch everything in my eyes. So I hope, yeah, you know, everyone can have chances to go to China. Yeah, you can, yeah, say. So now many Chinese people think it's good because, you know, for example, anti-corruption. It's a very hot topic in Western country. But I think many Chinese people, I think, yeah. So, yeah, thank you.
Sí, si me disculpáis porque están surgiendo más preguntas, las vamos a agrupar en vez de ir contestando una, por llevamos un poco peor de tiempo. Adelante.
Yes, I have two brief questions, one for the speaker, for Madame Wei, and one for the organizers of the conference. For Madame Wei, with all due respect, your president, Xi Jinping, and the Communist Party runs a ferocious totalitarian police state that jails and imprisons Democrats, kills Democrats, trade unionists, human rights workers, jails feminists, environmentalists, that has murdered millions of Chinese in the history, and not to mention the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward. It denies democracy, it denies free speech, it denies human rights. A couple of examples. Right now, the workers at Jasic Technology, a company in Shenzhen, are trying to organize an independent trade union. Together with student support from all over China, thousands of students have joined them in their effort to create an independent trade union. The Communist Party ordered the police to crush this struggle and arrested 50 students. Most of them are still in jail. Right now, your government has locked up 1 million, according to Amnesty International, about 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps in Xinjiang, brainwashing them and forcing them to deny their Muslim religion, forcing them to deny everything, and spend all day in brainwashing sessions where they sing Communist Party songs and so forth. How do you square these atrocities, that's Baoxing in Chinese, with socialism or rule of law? That's the question for you. For the organizers, This is a conference on Karl Marx, the foremost socialist theorist of workers' self-emancipation. Wei Jing is a representative, a member of the Communist Party of a totalitarian party state. Why do you give this apologist for a police state such a prominent role in this conference? You've given her 3 sessions to speak at a conference that Marx would never support the anti-democratic, anti-worker, anti-socialist Communist Party of China. Why didn't you invite workers or trade unionists or democratic activists from China instead of an apologist for the dictatorship of China? I mean, if just because she says they're socialist, if Donald Trump told you he was the most brilliant and best president ever, would you believe him? Would you take his word for it? Actions speak louder than words. The actions of your government speak louder than all your apologies up there. Could you give me an answer why you invited her and gave her such prominence? Thank you.
Sí, ahí. Después, no,
Yeah.
sí. Después pasaremos a hacer una contestación. Vamos a agrupar ahora las otras 2 preguntas que quedaban pendientes y posteriormente yo pasaré a contestar esta cuestión. Adelante.
Hola, buenas tardes. Quería preguntarle a la profesora Wei Jing, bueno, la política comercial que está adoptando el gobierno de Estados Unidos en una guerra comercial en ciernes con China, ¿de qué manera puede afectar hasta la nueva política que está implantando el Partido Comunista Chino? Gracias.
¿Teníamos otra pregunta en la sala?
Can I ask a question to the Americans? Just, sorry, but U.S. is also invading everywhere in the planet. Nothing else.
So, another question, so I can
¿Alguna cuestión? Aquí delante, por favor. Aquí delante. Perdona. Aquí delante. Sí, ahora ya contestamos todos. Ay, no. Perdón, vamos a intentar cerrar el debate con la tranquilidad debida y, por favor, tienes el turno de palabra.
Muchas gracias. I apologize. I want to have one question, but I am going to speak in Spanish. Okay, please, for Wen Jin. Mi pregunta es en la misma dirección que la... ¿Se oye ahora? ¿Sí? Sí, es en la misma perspectiva que lo anterior, pero no voy a preguntar por qué se ha invitado la China para esa conferencia. Yo creo que eso los organizadores lo van a responder. Y la pregunta es cómo en China, como todos sabemos, ha habido un desarrollo económico bastante importante, pero la pregunta va como si no podemos compaginar este desarrollo económico con el respeto de los derechos humanos. ¿Cómo se hace que hasta ahora no hay esta perspectiva de apertura democrática, aunque es el Partido Comunista Chino que gobierna en todo China, pero al menos también al nivel de la expresión democrática, de la libertad de prensa, que hace que hasta ahora eso es un problema en China? Es mi pregunta. Gracias.
Okay, so very serious question. So I try to, I answer the question. So before I just speaker because just yesterday I have conference speech, but the conference organization want to have some dialogue with. From Africa country, professor, we have do maybe some debate and some dialogue. So we just do, but later maybe I come here. So I think, 2 days ago, this is panel. This is a panel, not a conference speak. I think it's just a temporary, end. Why so this? Many, some, I'm the only scholar from China. China is a span. We have usually seldom. I don't know another conference, but this conference just me come. So some conference say maybe some scholars think, oh, I want to know more, China. So this is not. I think it's not conference organization is the fault. So I think it's very conference organization is good. Yesterday I'm formal conference speech. Today we have dialogue. Between the Africa and China. Another just temporary panel. So I think that's right. So this is conference to celebrate Karl Marx 200. So this is today. We are thinking with Karl Marx. China. I'm from School of Marxism. Really. So China is so socialism, so a country. So I think I come here. I attend this conference. I think English. So this is the second question. The first question, I answer your questions. You talk about. I know you talk about the Shenzhen, private company. Some, students help the working class to establish union, union. So, because I didn't say the specific report, I just only say the New York Times report. So, sometimes we know the New York Times is sometimes untrue. So I cannot make specific comments on the matter. But I would like to talk about the current working class in China. State-owned enterprises, especially the private sector workers. Really. So some private, company workers have long working hours, poor working environment, maybe some low income. But why so? Some China government cannot, control, sometimes, control the capitalist, private factory.
It's the government.
No, I just try to, so sometimes, capitalist, they want to do more money. For example, the government come to here, check something, but they can, I was a little so excited. So, but the owner, the public company, we have a low labor law, labor law to protect the worker conditions. So I believe with further development of China, the problem, I think, will be improved. So you said Xinjiang, 2 years ago. I think we can talk later. Right. I told you I born in Xinjiang. I'm very familiar with Xinjiang, so we can talk.
Señora,
thank you for questions.
Bien, creo que me toca a mí terminar de dar las últimas explicaciones. Gracias por las respuestas. Me parece que el debate ha sido profundo, ha sido interesante y yo creo que la vocación de este congreso, de esta conferencia, es precisamente permitir todo tipo de debates, es permitir las opiniones variadas, evidente, y esto es lo que se ha tratado y lo que se ha llevado adelante. Para otras cuestiones más puntuales, Eduardo, a lo mejor consideras decir alguna cuestión, pero yo quiero agradecer los tonos de los debates, yo quiero agradecer las opiniones que se han dicho y solamente un apunte personal. Si a ningún debate asistiera nadie con quien no estuviéramos totalmente de acuerdo o en desacuerdo, evidentemente cualquier debate sería un problema en sí mismo si realmente no tuviéramos la capacidad de poder venir, intervenir, debatir, opinar desde la prudencia y el respeto, como se ha hecho en esta sala, y, por tanto, poderle dar continuidad a todo lo que planteamos y pensamos que se puede desarrollar. Eduardo, yo creo que tienes un minuto, por lo menos, antes de marcharnos, para añadir cualquier cosa que consideres oportuna.
Sí, muchas gracias, Paloma. Lamento no haber estado en el debate por cuestiones organizativas, he llegado al final, aunque sí quería explicarle a los compañeros que vienen, que han planteado la cuestión, y yo amablemente respondo, ¿no? En el la organización del Congreso, lo primero, no comparte todas las opiniones que se realizan en el mismo. Entre ponencias y conferencias ha habido 250 participantes, 165 comunicaciones, ¿no? Y 41 ponencias. ¿Bien? Nosotros hemos convocado un congreso con la idea del 200 aniversario de Marx, y en torno a la figura, el pensamiento, la obra y la acción de Marx, ¿qué nos puede servir para ahora? ¿Bien? Dentro de las ponencias y las conferencias ha habido puntos de vista divergentes, diferentes, incluso que cuestionan la vigencia de Marx y que han criticado los modelos que se han inspirado, que se han dicho inspiradores del mismo. La segunda característica, en términos geográficos, hemos querido invitar a todos los continentes. ¿Bien? Y la mejor forma de representarla era en la mesa del plenario. No pudimos concretar al final la participación de Australia. En el último momento se nos cayó una profesora de Australia que iba a venir, pero hemos querido en la máxima representación del Congreso, que es en sus plenarios, en este aula, en el salón de actos, participación de América Latina, de Europa, de África y de Asia. Ese era el segundo elemento que quería plantear, es decir, esta visión con el máximo de amplitud más allá de España o de Europa occidental, ¿bien? Incluso dar un protagonismo muy grande a al marxismo meridional y de la periferia. Por eso habló don Pablo González Casanova, podemos haber invitado otro de los grandes marxistas del ámbito anglosajón o británico, en el concreto de Europa, que habitualmente abren este tipo de actividades en España, ¿no? Queríamos tener, digamos, esa mirada desde el sur global. Y en tercer motivo es, con respecto a los ejes, que es donde ha participado la profesora Maguèye, cada eje tiene la autonomía de organizar su programa. Nosotros hemos coordinado sobre todo toda la actividad logística, organizativa, para poner al servicio de ustedes la mejor posibilidad de realizar una actividad tan compleja y tan larga en días y en horario como esta. Yo personalmente tengo mi opinión de muchas de las cuestiones, pero al respecto no es la misión de la organización entrar en ellas. Sí, facilitar a los ejes. Los ejes han planteado una serie de ponentes, tanto de España, de Europa, como del extranjero, y nosotros no hemos entrado a valorar su obra, si era pertinente o no. Entendemos que en cada eje los ponentes y las ponentes invitadas son personas que tienen que aportar desde la visión del Congreso, es decir, desde el materialismo histórico, desde Marx, a el eje en cuestión, sea el de educación, sea el de geopolítica, que es el que vengo yo, y ha habido, por ejemplo, ponencias confrontadas con el ejemplo chino, por ejemplo, ¿no? O sea, el eje de economía o el de ecología o el que sea, ¿no? Espero que con estas aclaraciones y con estos, digamos, planteamientos que quería exponer en el plenario, desde la organización pues queda claro la vocación. Era la libertad de cátedra, se dice en la universidad, en nuestro caso la libertad de creación y de exposición geográficamente que cubriese todo, todo nuestro mundo, y en tercer lugar la autonomía de cada eje para poder garantizar estos objetivos con una organización en todos sus miembros que no nos hacemos copartícipes de todas las expresiones o de todos los enfoques que aquí se han vertido, pero sí los respetamos. Muchísimas gracias por su atención Y bueno, por mi parte nada más.
Muchas gracias, Eduardo, por la aclaración. Los debates en este congreso que hemos estado repartidos en las diferentes intervenciones han sido muy ricos y yo creo que la valoración es precisamente esa, la importancia de poder debatir desde las diferentes posiciones. Muchas gracias a los dos profesores por sus intervenciones. Gracias, Eduardo, por todas las aclaraciones. Y, bueno, mañana continuamos con el cierre ya y la clausura. Muchas gracias por estar aquí y ya nos vemos en los próximos momentos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.